Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a get ready with me, but as we're getting ready we're going to be chatting about some political things, specifically Candace Owens. Like, she was all up in the news because she went back and forth with Cardi B, and I for some reason it was suggested to me on YouTube to watch this video she did with the Daily Caller, so I'm just going to kind of run through it, have notes, and kind of go through and share my thoughts about it. So I'll list everything that I'm using down below because I'm going to be going over it because I'm going to be talking. So let's just go ahead and get started. So first she starts off by saying that, you know, she wants to, like, you know, educate Black Americans about how they shouldn't be voting for the Democrats anymore, and that the Democrats are, you know, basically useless to us as African Americans, and that we should really be, you know, shouldn't be used as pawns in the political race, and we should really, you know, educate ourselves about, you know, who's really working for us in the government. And so the first thing she talks about is how, like, you know, everybody born after 1980 is privileged, and we don't really have anything else better to do but to do these social justice things and, you know, start hashtags online, whatnot, because, you know, we're at peace. Even though she, you know, clearly forgets that, you know, we did go to war in the Middle East after 9/11, and plenty of those people are still dealing with those issues from going over there, and we are still in that to this day, right? We still have people, our military over in the Middle East, keeping peace. So while she talks about that, I'm like, what peace are you talking about? And she's saying that we're just fighting, people are just fighting over nothing, basically. There's really not these racial injustices, there's really not anything going on. It's just that we are bored, and we just, you know, we're bored with being peaceful. Which I'm like, what? Where I don't know where she lives at, what world she lives in, but that's just simply not the case. I think what's happening now is that because we do have access to internet and we're able to share our experiences, people are now able to share their experiences, and they're kind of like, you know, this happened to me when I was younger, happened to my parents, now it's still happening. Why are these things still happening? And I think that's really what's causing this uproar. Is now we're realizing that these things that we've been experiencing have been going on for a long time and still experiencing. And you know, we have this thought that, you know, America, the land of the free, everybody's equal, yada yada yada, but that's really not the case. And it's just now, like I said, with the sharing of information, we're really starting to see that across, you know, the US, that people are having these experiences, we're sharing them, there's videos coming out and everything displaying this. I don't really know what she's talking about when she's talking about we're living in peace, because I really feel like maybe, you know, there was a time when, because we didn't have access to information, people maybe didn't feel the need, or kind of didn't want to make something out of things, certain things, whether it's microaggressions or straight out racism. But now it's like, okay, you know what, now we have the power to do this, so let's change it. Like, we have the power to change these things, so let's do it. That's just my opinion. Let's see what else. She constantly refers to the protests that are going on as riots, which they're not riots. I mean, certainly people are rioting, but for the most part they are trying to be as peaceful as they possibly can, and while practicing, you know, safety because of, you know, good old COVID. So I don't like the way that she frames it as these are all riots. They're not riots. There are, like I said, there are a select few that are rioting, that are not there for the cause necessarily, but, you know, for the most part, there's plenty of peaceful protests that are going on. And she just kind of glances over it. And again, you'll see that Candace likes to frame things in her narrative to fit her narrative of, like, Black America is horrible. We are horrible. We're dumb. We don't know what we're talking about. We need to wake up because, you know, we should all be voting Republican and yada, yada, yada. Which, I mean, if you could prove to me like where that is the case, like I'm more than willing to listen to that, but I just haven't seen it personally for myself. So next they go back and forth about talking about you know, that Antifa and these Black Lives Matter are terrorist groups, which I'm like, have you not heard of like sovereign citizens, white supremacists? Like, those are terrorist groups that have not been named as such, but who actually go out and like kill a lot of people. So like, when they're talking about Antifa and Black Lives Matters, which are just organizations, and there is, like I said, there is going to be people that take it to the extreme, yes, but that's not what the movement is about. So I think that she, again, likes to characterize and put everybody in the same category and be like, they're all terrorists, which is, am I still recording? Which is not the case, right? We all know that. We all know that. That's why I'm just like, okay, Candace, sure. I'm not going in order. Okay, I think this is next. So then she keeps talking about, oh wait, that's not correct. Hold on, I'm trying to think. Right, okay, here we go. It's a little out of order. Okay. So she goes on to talk about, again, the Black Lives Matter movement and how, like, you know, it's, you know, again, a terrorist group, which it's really not, but sure, Candace, if that's what you want to call it and that's what you want to frame it as, just to make yourself, like, feel better, go for it. But, again, I don't think it's a terrorist group. A terrorist group is trying to, whatever, you can go all about that, but that's not. So they're talking about how Black Lives Matter has raised all this money and where has the money gone, which is a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know who is checking into that or where the money has gone. I know it's not a simple thing because, again, when it comes to like donations and donating money, I don't know how that's supposed to be allocated or who looks out for that or who checks to see that the money is going where it's supposedly supposed to go. I don't know who does that. So I can't really speak to like that financial aspect of where's the money going, but I'm sure that's something that, you know, can be looked into and found out. I don't know, so I'm not even going to talk about that because I don't know anything much about that part of it. But then they talk about how you know, their goal is to defund police, and again, there's a difference. Just because they want to defund police doesn't mean they want to get rid of the police, okay? Defunding is not the same as abolishing, so let's not keep mismatching those terms, right? And they're saying that we need more policing, which, I mean, again, the police are for a certain purpose. However, like here in California, a lot of times they're dealing with mentally ill people, people that are not on their medication, whatever, and they can be violent, absolutely, but they do not need to go to jail. And I think that's where for me, that's where the issue lies, is that they need to be going to someplace to treat their mental health issues, not to be housed in jail, which is not helpful to them at all whatsoever. So that's just me, and that's why I'm like, okay, yeah, we need to allocate money to these other resources because, again, being homeless shouldn't be a crime, right? We need to address why that person is homeless. In order to do that, we need resources, we need places to send them, things of that nature. So, again, that's just my thoughts on the whole defunding police and whatnot. I do think we need police. I don't think we should get rid of them. However, they do a lot of stuff that is like not really what they were trained to do. So that's my stand on that. And then she talks about how, you know, that, you know, in Black neighborhoods, there's a lot of crime, this and that whatsoever. Again, when we talk about hyper segregation where lots of Black communities are grouped together, there is going to be a lack of resources, right? They are lower income, they don't have the school systems that the white counterparts have. They are not going to have that. When there's a lack of resources, there's always going to be an increase in crime. That has been proven through many studies. Just Google it. So when she's talking about that, it's because, yeah, as African Americans, we do not have the same resources that our white ally counterparts have. So when desegregation happened and there were all Black neighborhoods, doctors didn't want to go in there, stores didn't want to go in there, businesses didn't want to go there. It's the same principle now, where we don't, with the closing of factories and other warehouses, there's not that opportunity for employment, right? And our education system is trash throughout the US, but specifically in low income neighborhoods. And it's not just Black people that are affected by this. I don't want to put that out there. It's also anybody of a low income. Their schools are not getting the proper books, teachers, resources, help to educate them. So when it comes to the education aspect and the crime, because we're not getting educated, we're not getting access to that, higher education doesn't seem attainable. Of course, there's not that much employment for minimum, people with just a high school diploma. Like I said, there's a lack of resources, there's going to lead to crime. That's a known fact. So of course, if you're in a predominantly Black neighborhood, you as a Black person, the chances are the victim of your crime is going to be Black. Okay, so when we talk about Black on Black crime, that means, that's not a thing. It's just crime. Crime is crime is crime is crime is crime, right? It's a proven fact that, again, lack of resources leads to higher rates in crime. So we need to address the lack in resources, not just be like, well, they're violent and then they kill each other. No. White people get investigation discovery, oxygen, Lifetime, all about how their crimes are glamorized and romanticized. But when it comes to Black people, somehow it's like, oh no, Black on Black crime, it's horrible. How is that? How was that? Why is there that double standard? I don't know. So then she goes on to talk about Black Lives Matter and how they want to destroy the nuclear family, right? They're like, it says on their website that they are out to destroy the nuclear family. So I'm like, oh, does it say that? Because I don't really know. I never really looked at the Black Lives Matter website, to be honest. Like, I agree with the sentiment, but I'm not all about the organization because I just don't know enough about it. So I can't be like, yeah, go Black Lives Matter, because I don't know enough about the organization, what they actually do, how they put these things into motion or practice. I don't know. So I went to their website and looked, and I have the actual quote here. If you want to go on the Black Lives Matter website, what we are about, it says, we disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families in villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. Nowhere in there does it seem like they don't want a nuclear family. They just want to expand on that. And I think as in a lot of Black communities, I know, for me, we had aunties and uncles that were not actually our aunties or uncles. But if our parents couldn't be there for whatever reason, we would go to them and they would care for us, and it wasn't an issue. And that, I know, really helped my parents, who both worked full-time jobs. So for me, their thing is that they want to expand on the nuclear family and not just have it mom, dad, and children. Have mom, dad, but also the community stepping in, helping out. And I think that, especially right now with coronavirus, it would be a lot helpful if we could collectively as a community come together and help kids in any way that we can, as far as, homeschooling or whatever. So if you have a group of friends and you feel comfortable, you can say, okay, you know what, I work from home Tuesdays and Thursdays. The kids can come to me on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'll have the group of kids, and then kind of like that type thing, which again, I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't think it's saying that, no, we don't want a mom and a dad in the home. Nobody wakes up and is like, yeah, I want to be a baby mama or I want to be a baby daddy. It just, events unfold and that's what happens. But that's across the board. That's not just in African American communities. That's across the board. We all know marriage is down, having kids is down, all of that. That's across the board. It's not just a Black thing. So yeah, that's, again, she likes to frame this as an only black problem, and it's really not. It's just that's the way that society is progressing. Because that's what happens, is, you know, progress, moving forward, changes. And I would say that, I want to say this, I don't understand that she's a conservative, and as a conservative, she's deeply religious, and that's what she based a lot of her beliefs on. And I totally understand that concept, because she's right in saying that a lot of African Americans are super religious and super conservative. Howsoever, when it comes to the outright denying somebody's existence, whether they're gay, transgender, whatever the case may be, that's where I think you lose people, because you're like, why? You're gonna, again, God said love thy neighbor, right? And you're gonna just deny somebody's complete existence because you don't agree with their lifestyle. I don't think that that's right. So I think that's where we lose a lot of people, because again, I believe in God, I'm Christian, I totally hold to my faith. Howsoever, that does not give me the right to judge somebody else based on whatever lifestyle is. It's not my job. So I think that's where we get a little lost there, because she goes on to say some problematic things. So she starts talking about how we're moving in the direction of like segregation again, because colleges have all black dorms. I went to school here in California. There was a all black dorm, all Hispanic dorm, all Asian dorm. There was whatever you wanted type dorms. And again, there is nothing saying you have to live in those dorms. There's difference, right, between segregation, right? Segregation, you had to be with your color. Going to college and deciding, hey, I want to live in this dorm, or I don't want to live in a dorm, you have the choice. So to me, that's not the same thing. They're giving people the opportunity to say, yeah, I want to be around more African American people for whatever reason, and that's their right, especially when they're in a predominantly white place. Maybe they want to have more exposure to black people if they've never had before. That's totally fine. And when she's like, well, they would be upset if they had all white dorms. You could go on a college campus and find, I'm sure, plenty of dorms that are all white, like fraternities that are all white. Like, what? Again, she frames these things, and she sounds really good when she does it, but it's like, what the heck? I need to concentrate to do my eyeliner, so. Okay. This is good as I get. Okay, let's move along. So yeah, the black dorm thing is like, and then this is where she like totally loses me, like so much. And again, I have no ill will towards Miss Candace. I think, you know, she tries to make her point based on her beliefs, and that's her right to do. Howsoever, this is where she really gets me. I know I shouldn't let it get me, but it really does. And that's when she starts talking about feminism and how it's about teaching you to hate men. Bitch, what? Really? What? I'm pretty sure that's not it. It's not it. It's not it. And then she goes to say African American studies teaches you how to hate white people. What? Okay, that's not it. That's not it. Not quite. Now, I've never taken a feminism course, but I have taken African American studies. And what I learned about is the contributions that African Americans have made to the society as a whole that we didn't learn about in high school and below. That's what I learned. I didn't learn anything about hating white people. Okay. So I don't know where she was going to school at that she learned that, but that's unfortunate for her. but I don't think that's what they try to do. I don't. And then she goes on to say, what did she say? Oh, multiculturalism makes you a better person, which is very true. Like, I think you should learn about other cultures, but you should also have the opportunity to learn about more about your own culture. Like, there's nothing, I don't think, there's nothing wrong with that. Or learning more about women and women's contribution to history. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with those things, and I'm not sure why she's against that. And then she goes on to say more about, like, if we Black is so amazing, how come Black people don't prosper when they're around other Black people? Again, lack of resources, right? It's the lack of resources that cause the issues, and predominantly Black. Sorry. Yes, that's what causes the issues in predominantly Black societies, is lack of resources. So it's not that Black people themselves are just horrible. It's, like I said, the situation that predominantly Black communities find themselves in, which is, you know, usually in areas where there's not access to stores that offer, you know, healthy foods. There's not medical professionals that know how to deal with Black issues. The schools, again, are not getting the funding that they need to provide the different classes and education that are needed to compete with others. So there's a lot of issues that, again, she just seems to, like, want to ignore completely. Like, or what? We're just gonna ignore this and just blame it all, like it's all Black people's fault. Like, we suck because, you know, we decided to suck. And then she also says that we expect things to be handed to us on a silver platter. Like, no. We just don't want to have to work twice as hard as a white person that's being mediocre and get the same thing. Like, that's what it is. Like, I don't know about you because I work freaking hard, but I can tell you this, that I have my degree, and there are people who make more than me that are white and have high school diploma. So, right, and they can be mediocre. They can. And I work, like I said, somewhere that is predominantly white. So I do feel like I do get judged a lot more harsh than my white counterparts. And, like, there's a couple other Black people that I work with. So there's that. So yeah, and then she starts talking about affirmative action and how it wasn't helpful. Again, I don't know enough about affirmative action. It was in California. Affirmative action ended when I was like 8, so I don't really know much about that or the studies about it, because it wasn't something that, like, we had. I mean, I'm not saying that we didn't have it, but I'm just saying, like, it was not, like I said, it ended when I was like 7 or 8 years old. So I don't really know much about affirmative action and the effects it had on the Black community. So I don't want to speak to it, but she just talks about how, and I could understand this and I could see how this is true, how, like, you know, kids being placed at Harvard shouldn't have been at Harvard, even though they were really smart and everything, but because, you know, affirmative action, they got put there, even though they probably shouldn't have been there. But, you know, and I could see that they weren't successful, you know, at that school because they were actually not really supposed to be there. They weren't, you know, academically on the same page as the other people at Harvard, and I totally get that. Because I do feel like, you know, our schools, like I said, schools in predominantly Black neighborhoods or low-income neighborhoods, they don't receive this same type of access and, you know, education as those in wealthier neighborhoods. And then she starts going about, you know, how we look up to Beyonce and Jay-Z, and, like, all we have is, you know, we praise, you know, rappers and whatnot as our, you know, as our role models, which I'm like, okay, first of all, what? My thing is this one is, even if that's the case, what's not to say that what people admire about them is that both Jay-Z and Beyonce, whatever you want to say about them or their music, they are hard workers. They've built a business. You know, they seem family oriented. You know, Beyonce, she has a killer work ethic. You know, she wants to be the best, put on the best. Those are really great qualities to have. Those are really great qualities to look up to somebody for. So I don't know why it's like, oh, they look up to Beyonce. It's like, well, yeah, but there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Or if you are one that wants to be like, you know, in the music industry, why can't you look up to them? And again, there's nothing wrong with looking up to other people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, you know. Again, but when do we really see a lot of African American role models other than in sports entertainment industries? We don't get that showcase. We don't get a lot of TV shows. We don't get a lot of the same things that Caucasian people do. So I don't know. Again, just because somebody's your role model, that doesn't take away or devalue in any sort of way, because again, there might be characteristics of that person that are really awesome and really great. So I'm always opposed to when people are like, well, you look up to Cardi B or whatever. Well, she came from nothing and she's like a millionaire. So yeah, why not? Why not? Why not? Despite about what she raps about, I mean, you act like punk music or rock and roll never references sex or anything to do with sex or whatever. Just because they say it differently, it's better. You know what I mean? But again, she's a role model because she is not your stereotypical, like, you know, cookie cutter entertainer, celebrity, or whatever. She came from something to nothing. So, I mean, again, why is that a bad quality to look for in somebody? I don't know. Again, she's very dismissive. Candace is very dismissive of that. She just makes it seem like, oh, they're celebrities, so they don't really know. Which is very true. They are out of touch because they have millions of dollars. However, again, doesn't mean that they don't have a good work ethic. Doesn't mean they didn't work hard. And doesn't mean that they don't strive every day to be the best that they can be at what they do. So, there's that. And then Candace really loses me when she starts talking about transgender people. Basically, she says that, like, this is another attack on the nuclear family, because, you know, being able to tell people, you know, you could be a boy one day or a girl the next day, like, what is that? I'm pretty sure that that's not. She very oversimplifies being transgender, you know what I mean? And I just, again, I don't agree. And she says that it's child abuse, allowing, again, people, and I'm not transgender, so I don't know, but I do know transgender people, and I'm pretty sure they don't wake up and be like, you know what, I'm going to make my life really hard and decide that instead of being a boy, I'm going to be a girl. Like, girl, that's not what happens. It's a very big decision that they make, especially if they go through with the gender reassignment surgery. Like, that's a big deal. So it's not a flippant decision that they're making where they're just like, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna be a boy. Like, that's not it. That's not it. And to say that, again, just like people back in the day thought, you know, being gay was a mental health issue, she again says that it is. That's the same. That's what transgender is. It's a mental health issue, and I don't agree. And again, if you're going to say that you're open to everybody but then deny somebody's whole existence, you're not here for everybody. You're only here for some people that conform to what your beliefs are, and that's not what we're about. And like, at least in my opinion, that's not what we as a country should be about. Okay, if that's what you choose to do, that's what you choose to do. You're not hurting anybody, so you go ahead and do it. But I just, like I said, I was really offended that she was like, oh, what if somebody told my son that my child, that they can be whatever they want when they go to school? I would be livid. again, that's not how it works. It's not how it works. It's really not. It's not how it works. That's not what's going on. So yeah, that really, like, I'm like, okay, bitch, we're done. Like, I was trying to, like, really just try to be understanding of you, but now you said that, I can't with you. I cannot. So then, what else did she start to say? Oh, and then she goes on to say, she's so problematic, that, can you imagine that the kids on college campus today, do you think that they would be able to go to war? And they're crying about Ben Shapiro coming to their campus. Now, I don't know why that makes you a man because you go to war. I don't know why that's a validation. I have no idea. But again, in multiple wars, there were drafts. So even people that didn't want to go to war had to go to war. And they stepped up to the challenge. So to me, that's really not an indicator of, you know, you never know until somebody's in that situation how they're going to react. So I don't know why she's using that to validate some how a man is strong. And then yeah, she talks. Wait, there's another quote in here which I did that I wanted to quote her, but I don't know what I would do with it. Oh, she says, in the history of the world, in a society that has survived, there is never in the history of the world a society that has survived without strong men. So women can't do anything, I guess, or, like, you know, because it's not like women have ever actually had the opportunity to do anything. So how would we know that? Like, how would we know? How would you know? How would you know? So I don't know, like, again, it's just problematic for me. It's just problematic, just on a whole another level. It's just problematic. So then she ends talking about melon voting, which we have all seen a lot about in the media. I would just like to point out that I live in the state of California, second largest population in the United States, and a majority of voters do melon voting, and we really haven't had a problem with it. The biggest issue when it comes to melon voting and why ballots are what is it called, rejected, is because their people's signatures don't match, and that is something that, you know, is due down to human error, whether it's the polling person that's checking the signatures and they don't think it matches, or, like, you know, I don't know. I have a long name, so sometimes I get lazy and I don't really sign my name all the way. So, like, I get it. But that's usually the biggest issue that we have had in the state of California, and I think melon voted in general. But as far as fraud is concerned, there's little evidence to show that there's outrageous fraud going on when it comes to melon ballots. The issue is, will the post offices be able to send them all out in time and receive them in time for them to be counted? That is the issue that we're having. That is the real issue that should be going on, not about the fraud, because, again, yeah, unless somebody is jacking the post office ballots and taking them and, you know, signing everybody's and voting and doing all that stuff, again, there's ways that they go about checking that, versus somebody hacking into the machine and causing errors where you vote for somebody but it really goes towards somebody else. But, you know, we don't want to talk about that. So she swears that we're rigging the voting by doing mail-in voting. But again, in California, majority of people vote by mail. So, and it's, you know, I mean, we're not, trust me, we're struggling right now. I get it. Like, I don't want to say that we're like the shining stars, but I don't know. So yes, those are my thoughts on Miss Candace Owens. and her problematic views. I don't want to get into, I didn't watch the interview she did. Oh, I don't think this really matches, but let's tone it down. I didn't watch her interview with Mr. Ben Shapiro. But if you would like me to watch it and comment on it, I'll be more than willing to do so. Alright, you guys, so I have finished my makeup. Thank you so much for sitting and talking with me. If you have any comments or anything, please put them down below, and I will link everything I used down below. Let me do a little setting spray because I feel a little dry. Okay, better. So yes, like I said, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you come back and watch my other videos, and I will see you next time. Bye.